I'm Gabe Lenners with your Red Carpet Report, and tonight I'm at Universal's Legacy of Horror Film series at the Samuel Goldwyn Theater. Right. Okay, Randy, tell me about the films being shown during this series.
Well, everybody who grew up watching these monster movies has their own entry point, and I'm ashamed to admit, no, not ashamed, think it's curious to admit that my entry point was the ghost of Mr. Chicken, so that's why this is in the series. And then I discovered all the rich history that Universal had from seeing this comedy at a drive-in movie when I was a little kid. And then I discovered this crazy silent film, The Man Who Laughs. So those are the two movies that most people are kind of going, how did that get in the festival? People know Bride of Frankenstein, they know Dracula, they know The Creature from the Black Lagoon, and then they go, Man Who Laughs, Ghost of Mr. Chicken. So it's just a way of mixing it up a little bit.
Why do you think people are so fascinated with horror films? Do you think it goes back to their childhood and how they were growing up and sitting with their friends around Halloween and watching, or how do you think that all plays out?
I think when you're young and you first experience a horror film and you expect it to be something really, awful and horrible, and then you get through it and you sometimes even laugh a little bit with it, I think there's a real catharsis to it. But I also think that particularly with these Universal films, the early ones like Dracula and Bride of Frankenstein, they're not really what we think of as horror films today. They're really almost love stories, kind of dark and unrequited love stories, but they have a real sweetness and a sadness to them and kind of a life lesson, the whole idea of creating your own monster and things like that. So I think they're really stories that get retold, and everybody relates to them in a very universal way, no pun intended.
When did you decide to put this whole series together?
When Universal told me they were celebrating their 100th anniversary, I said, can I have the horror films? And they said, well, we'll save that for last. And I said, great, I'll take it. I'll try and do as much as I can with it. And I've had so much fun with it. And they've been really terrific in letting us show their really new, beautiful restorations on a big screen, which is really hard to see nowadays. I mean, we see these films on television or on DVD, and that's really wonderful. But at the same time, I'm really looking forward to sharing these with people in the theater with a large audience on the big screen. It's just really breathtaking because the art direction and the way these movies are put together, the look of them, even in black and white, they're really just gorgeous. And I think a lot of people will rediscover them, even though they may have seen them many times before.
You talked about the black and white movies, but what do you think and what do you foresee for the future of horror films?
That's hard to tell, but I think that the future is limitless. I mean, that's one of the things that's so nice about having Guillermo del Toro introduce the films today. I mean, Pan's Labyrinth to me is like one of the great modern horror.
It's amazing, just the stuff that comes out of his mind. Yeah. It's just unfathomable.
And he's so many of the people that are making films today are inspired by these early classics, and that's one of the great things for me is discovering that all these people that I admire as filmmakers still have that little kid in them, just like me at the drive-in, when I was young.
So you're sitting around with your friends getting ready for Halloween. What horror film do you watch?
Oh my goodness, it changes a lot, but I tend to like the offbeat stuff. I love Mad Love a lot with Peter Lorre, which was kind of an inspiration for Citizen Kane in some ways, but I love that film a lot. Every year I come up with something new. I love the classics. I love going back to these Universal films, but every once in a while I'll discover something new too. But I do like, for Halloween, as opposed to other times of the year, I do like something that feels a little more vintage. There's something about that nostalgia of the black and white that I just find really appealing.
Randy, so nice to meet you. Have fun tonight. So many people out here.